injuries, let's get into to Cam Akers a little bit, because man, that is I like, also you tweeted, like, if you're doing victory laps over an injury, I forget exactly what you said, but like I totally agreed with you, because it's like, what I mean, let's just take away the fact that, like, our fantasy football team, let's take away our favorite player, our favorite team, and let's just like remove all that. And what do you get? A human being. And that human being puts in all that work to get to where they're going to be. And at the end of the day, this happens where they're training, and it's right before training camp, and they get, I assume, a non-contact injury, tearing your Achilles, which, I mean, is just never good. Injuries aren't good in general, but Achilles, I mean, I said this and I felt bad saying it. I almost wish it was the ACL, because I feel like those are easier to come back from than an Achilles tear. I'm really worried about Cam Akers long term.
Rightfully so. I mean, Achilles are tough to bounce back from, and that's like we saw this with Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack had a great rookie campaign, and then tore his Achilles, and he's supposed to come back this year, but nobody knows what his involvement's going to be. Like, he might just finish out this contract, his rookie deal, and never be able to play football again. I mean, that's one where it has one of the lowest rates of coming back and being able to play 100%. We see it in basketball, we see it in football, and it's just not something that you can bounce back from. And then as a running back, it's probably the hardest position to bounce back from. You lose that step, you lose that ability to cut, and it can really, really screw up a career. So, prayers up to Cam Akers. I hope that he can bounce back, but an Achilles injury, that's, as close to a kiss of death as there is for an NFL running back, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's really tough. And when you talk about the shelf life of a running back only lasting until really 30, I mean, some guys you'll have Frank Gore out there, and you'll have an Adrian Peterson, but I mean, for the most part, it's 30. It's really tough, because having an injury like that really shaves off some time in your career, and there's no telling that he's going to be 100% the same guy when he comes back, like were alluding to. Now, let's talk about the implications of this, and we can look at this from a fantasy perspective. Am I insane for thinking that Darrell Henderson is going to be a top 12 fantasy running back this season because of this?
Yes. I think
Really?
that you're a little bit insane. I mean, I love Darrell Henderson, the talent. I think that this kid is a blast to watch. I didn't even think I wasn't that high on Cam Akers because of Darrell Henderson, because, a lot of people were putting Cam Akers into this top 5, top 7 discussion. And I didn't see it because I said they have a very capable backup in Darrell Henderson that is going to earn his touches. He's going to be involved in, just about every aspect of the game. He's really a do it all type of back. That being said, I just don't know if he's going to be able to handle a full workload. One of the reasons that people got so excited about Cam Akers is because you thought that he was slotted in to see 250, 300 touches a year. I don't know if they're ever going to be able to get that type of workload to Darrell Henderson. So, like, right now, if the everything shook out and week 1 this was the roster, I think realistically he should probably be like a top 15 running back. That's probably where I'd put Darrell Henderson. But I would be absolutely shocked if they don't pick somebody up before week 1, whether it's Todd Gurley, bringing Todd Gurley back, whether it's
Bring him back.
Le'Veon Bell, Adrian Peterson, Duke Johnson. There are still so many guys out there. I don't think anybody wants Duke Johnson. I think that regardless of who they bring in, I think that Darrell Henderson is still going to be the lead back. I don't think there's any free agent out there that can really take that role away from him. But whoever it is just going to be an annoying thorn in the side. And so right now, I actually did my rankings today, and I moved Darrell Henderson to RB 19. I moved him one slot ahead of. I don't know if you can see here because we're close up, but I got the Bears helmet back here. I moved him one slot ahead of David Montgomery. And I think that talent-wise, I don't think that there's a huge gap there, but we know that Sean McVay does like to give the ball to one running back if they can get going. He likes to ride that hot hand. But, realistically, I think that he has the potential to crack the top 12, but I don't think that you should be drafting him as a top 12 running back.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at it right now, at least for me, I'm looking at him in the 3rd and 4th, but I'm not like 100% go and dive into that. I think he's going to have a great season, and I think the reason for that is because, watching the way things went with Jared Goff, I know this run game last year was like exceeding expectations, in my opinion, because one, I think the offensive line was always better than people gave it credit for. They're not the the Super Bowl, built for tough offensive line of the year like 2018. But it's like they've had this reputation since 2019, and everything went down, in that season. It's like people don't realize how good they were in 2020. And so I look at, they lose Austin Blythe, but for the most part, they're all back. It says a lot that a new offensive line coach and Kevin Carberry is coming in is like, okay, he didn't make any adjustments. He had 3 guys in the draft that he coached that they didn't even go after, which says a lot to me. So I think the offensive line's good. That'll help Pendo. On top of that, he led the team in broken tackles last year, which was surprising. Had more than Akers, more than Malcolm Brown. He's great in pass pro, so that will allow him to stay on the field, which is very important. And I think he's a better receiving back than giving credit for. And they were finding that stride, I think, when when they were finding that stride, but Goff could not hit him in stride down the sideline. So for me, I look at Henderson. I look at the fact they added Stafford. So defenses are going to have to, they're going to have to be ready for anything because Stafford can make you pay. They added Deshaun Jackson, Tutu Atwell that can stretch the field. So I really kind of look at this, running game is like, even if it's Xavier Jones, who I'm really high on as a player, not fantasy wise. I think even if it was him, he could have a solid season. So I guess that's really why, you obviously, you touched on it. You like, Henderson, the player, the talent. I think there's some stuff there where, he could get rolling and, who knows? And if they're up in big games, he's going to get a lot of touches, I think.
And like I said, his upside is absolutely that of, finishing, I'd say even finishing top 5 realistically. If he could play a full 17 games, I mean, he is talented. And this is a team that runs the ball and runs the ball well. So it's definitely in his range of outcomes. But I just think that you'd be crazy to pass up on a guy, taking him 12th overall, where you're passing up on a guy like Joe Mixon or Austin Eckler or some of these other guys that have higher upside, especially knowing that you can wait until the 3rd round and get Darrell Henderson. I love that call out though that you made because I have been beating that drum about Matt Stafford, Tutu Atwell, and Deshaun Jackson. We've never really seen this. It's been a very, people kind of give Sean McVay a little bit of crap, if you will, just for not having a very diverse playbook. And I think that he really had to kind of dumb it down with Jared Goff a little bit. And now that you've got Matt Stafford, who is over the last decade, he is the most accurate deep ball quarterback in the league. They didn't accidentally sign Deshaun Jackson and Tutu Atwell. There's going to be an element to this offense that a lot of people aren't talking about, and that's going to be the ability to stretch the field with either of those guys with an extremely accurate deep ball passer, and all that's going to do is open up even more opportunities for the running backs.
I agree. And, that's what I've been, shouting over here on this channel. And, people are like, oh, come on, you're just a homer. I'm like, hey, man, I've watched, man. I know Sean McVay isn't actually holding himself back that much. I know, because here's the thing. I think 2017, 2018 Goff, you saw signs. This guy can make all the throws. But whatever happened in between, the Chiefs game and then honestly, the Lions game, he was different the rest of the way and was never the same. That Chiefs game, we saw 54-51. It's maybe the greatest regular season game of all time. I mean, he looked amazing. I mean, he was going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes, and you're thinking as a Rams fan, wow, we got this guy for the next 10 years or whatever. And now it's like, you look in 2019, completely different quarterback. The whole team's different. But then 2020, he starts off, like Jared Goff fashion, has some good games, some solid games, some good games for Jared Goff. But on top of that, you're looking at guys like Gerald Everett has the furthest yards of separation of any receiver in the league at one point, and he's sitting there with 400 yards receiving, and you're like, what is going on? Higbee's hurt. How the hell does he only have 400 yards receiving? And then, you don't even get 1,000-yard receiver. You don't get 1,000-yard rusher. So last year it was like, not having that mobility that a guy like John Wolford brought to the table, I think really opened up the Rams' eyes. I think McVay always kind of knew, but I said, really the thing that did it for me, the glass shattered. I always was really hard on Goff. I mean, anybody can know that about me. But what I'll say is that the glass shattered for me in Miami, the Miami game, because they held Tua Tagovailoa at under 100 yards. They should have won that game. They lost by 11 because Goff committed 4 turnovers. And I just felt like at that point I was done. I couldn't take it anymore, you know? And I'm watching
Yeah,
John Wolford.
it's one thing to have a it's one
Go
thing to
ahead.
have a conservative having a conservative quarterback is one thing. We've seen a lot of conservative quarterbacks, win
Yeah.
Super Bowls, like make it all the way. But when they're committing turnovers that are putting your team in a bad position, there's
Oh
nothing
God.
more frustrating than seeing that as a fan.